Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you again for coming. And inshallah, we'll continue our discussion on the 13th word. We will be starting from page 169, as you can see on the screen. I'll start with a short dua and then we can go ahead and start reading. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Okay. So we've been discussing a particular verse for quite some time about how the Quran is a healing for us. And today we're just gonna pretty much dive into something very specific. And then we can all help each other in connecting why is this related to how the Quran can be a healing book or a healing message. Before I start reading, I'd like us to do a little bit of like self-reflection, just a refresher. If you want to know something about God, where do you go? Or what book do you read? Or who do you ask? What do you do if you want to know something about God? The floor is open for any answers.
I think you start with asking who you are first.
Sorry. Farah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was saying I will start by asking myself who I am first.
Okay.
Practically speaking, looking at the general appearance of the society, I would say most of the time people will go prior to this very late age, will go to the mosque or the church or whatever the religious institutions and speak to the religious leaders. But very late, the civilization completely radically changed. They will go to YouTube and see what the religious people say normally about those people who are in this class, specifically in this class. None of us would go there, but seriously think about themselves, as Farah said, who I am, and ask these questions. But normally, the normal people in the street would go to the YouTube. So we have to prepare ourselves as the present people here to speak to them who are listening about the religion, listening to other people, religious leaders of any kind of community, and deciding what the religion is or what God is. So we have to prepare ourselves to speak to them. I think you asked this question deliberately, very cunningly, thank you. Then how are we going to read the following text? And then what kind of benefit we will derive from it? That it gives a kind of guideline how to speak to people. And of course, for ourselves, but practically speaking, as far as the content of the text is concerned, how to address people. We will see an example of it in the text. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fariha also agrees with you. In the chat box, you mentioned YouTube. So definitely when people want to know about God, one of the sources is YouTube. And like you mentioned, there are other sources. I think for today's reading, the reason I asked the question is the reading is going to present us with a set of examples of how do we know of God. And I will ask you to pay attention to what do you think is the strategy that's being followed? Being in this class, you're probably used to that question. But I think it always helps to remember. So like, what's the strategy that's being used? What questions do you think are being repeatedly answered? And basically, what's the line of thought? So that, you know, if I'm someone coming up to you and I want to know something of God, what's the technique or the strategy you're going to give me in order for me to follow it so that I can have, so that I can use in order to answer the question, well, then who is God? So as soon as you notice anything, pause me and tell me what you think. All right, I will go ahead and start reading. The title is The Sixth Topic from the Fruit of Belief. This consists of a single brief proof of the pillar of belief, belief in God. For there are numerous decisive proofs and explanations in the Risale al-Nur. I think it's worth mentioning here that, you know, the word belief has a lot of meanings, and we've discussed it so many times. However, if something comes up to you about this particular word and what it means, please do share it. It's always very useful. So here it says, I'm going to mispronounce the second word. If someone knows how to pronounce it, go ahead. In a place, a group of high school students came to me saying, tell us about our Creator. Our teachers do not speak of God. I said to them, I being Nursi, all the sciences you study continuously speak of God and make known the Creator, each with its own particular tongue. Do not listen to your teachers, listen to them. I find this very relevant to today. A lot of people, a lot of specifically high school students, they will ask the question of who is God, or how do we know of God? But particularly today, we're focusing on the question is who is God, right? What's our God like, basically? So the first analogy is, for example, a well-equipped pharmacy with life-giving potions and cures in every jar, weighed out in precise and wondrous measures, doubtless shows an extremely skillful, practiced, and wise pharmacist. In the same way, to the extent that it is bigger and more perfect and better stocked than the pharmacy in the marketplace, the pharmacy of the globe of the earth, with its living potions and medicaments in the jars, which are the 400,000 species of plants and animals, shows and makes known to eyes that are blind, even by means of the measure or scale of the science of medicine that you study, the all-wise one of glory, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth. Okay, this is the first example. Let's try to walk through it once more. So what's the author doing here? So the first sentence says a well-equipped pharmacy. So anybody can relate to a pharmacy, or at least most people, with life-giving potions and cures in every jar, weighed out in precise and wondrous measures. So here he's acknowledging how everything in the pharmacy is laid out in a precise manner. And then the author is like saying, okay, well, then this shows an extremely skillful, practiced, and wise pharmacist. Now, normally, if I walk into a pharmacy and buy any kind of medicine, I'm not really like thinking of the pharmacist unless I ask myself the question, well, what does the pharmacy tell me about the pharmacist? So I have to pay attention to that. So far, so good. I guess I don't hear any, I don't see any hands. Brother Ali, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I cannot.
Oh, good.
I cannot really raise my hand. So
That's okay.
what are we noticing here from the very beginning? Then the very fundamental question in the dialogue the author deals with belief in God. We can expand it. It is not really only for belief in God, but we can do, if we get the methodology that the authors very simply puts forward to us, we can extend it to belief in angels, belief in the revelation, and the belief in the hereafter, and the necessity of the prophets. We can extend it. We have to bear in mind this, but we have to follow the method that the author is presenting to us on a very simple level, not complicated, not sophisticated at all. So high school students are coming, innocent students, confused. At home, they see whether the parents are talking about God, belief, hereafter, hell, paradise, etc., punishment, or whatever the cultural elements they have. They are practicing at home, most probably, but nowadays it is getting rare and rare, less and less. But the students say, innocent, well, we go to school and we don't hear anything about God. So he says, okay, the author doesn't say, oh, why don't you go and ask a religious leader, imam, or apparently the students are Muslims, could be Christians, they should go to the priest and ask them, etc. No, he says, look, you are studying sciences. It speaks at their level. That is interesting. Speaks at their level. It speaks to whatever is available for them. Go to school. You are going to school and you are studying the science. They talk about God. How come? And make known. I mean, they are just mentioning God to you. How? In their own particular tongue. Now, that is important to me to pay attention, but in their particular tongue. It means the way they exist. Very simple. The way they exist. You will understand that rather than listening to the teachers, your teachers, why? Teachers interpret it nowadays somehow willingly or unwillingly. All teachers are forced all over the world talk about the science without referring to any belief matters. It means religion, belief in God, belief in the hereafter. No, just say the things are happening like this. That's it. That is what we found the universe. So don't listen to their interpretation. So again, I'm emphasizing on the importance of why don't you go and listen to or watch the religious videos or listen to the preachings of the religious leaders. No, it's very interesting. It is very interesting. What? Just look at the things that you are studying themselves. Don't listen to the interpretations of other people. Just yourself. Be yourself. And just look at the things, how they are coming into existence. He will give the create, he will give the example, practical example, not complicated, not scientific, practical example. So, of course, pharmacy, pharmacist. Pharmacy, the medicines there, he's comparing it to living beings. Any living being is a kind of medicine with a particular combination of how do I use the word now? Particular way of being formulated. But it definitely necessitates a conscious being who is going to do it. Matter, the material parts of the pharmacy or the medicine, material parts of the medicine cannot really organize themselves in such a way, such a precise measurement for the purpose of their functioning. They are arranged definitely for any human reasoning by a conscious being. We call them pharmacists. So from their creation, from creator. Existence from the one who gives existence. So make this transfer. Don't go anywhere else. That is a very interesting, very practical, and also nowadays not much practiced way of instructing the young generation. Look at yourself, as Farah said, how you are arranged. You are a medicine as if formulated, consciously formulated, consciously arranged. You cannot really say that my cells are doing by themselves and arranging themselves. I was cutting my nails yesterday, and I said, look at the nails keep growing, but the fingers don't. What a perfect, simple example. Why not? If the cells are inclined to grow, why not the fingers? My fingers, the cells of my fingers don't grow. I just laughed at it. Excuse me, that I just wanted to mention the simplicity of the cure or the presentation and not referring to, especially nowadays, I'm very sensitive about this point. I'm sure you are all aware of my sensitivity here, especially saying that leave them to school, just study them and pass your exams, but go to a religious leader and listen to them. Oh, God forbid nowadays, God forbid, generally speaking, there are definitely exceptions. If they listen to religious people, for sometimes I spent some time on listening to preachers, Christian preachers, rabbis speaking about religion, not politics, but about religion, their understanding of their religion, etc. Imams. God forbid if a young man goes and listens to them, they will find the truth, even the Muslim imams. I don't know, well, not yet, I have not come about with an imam which really speaks as the text says he's so realistic. I don't think so. They will be very much disappointed. Thank you. So we have to be careful about the methodology. Thank you.
Thank you. I think also I like how he's not only explaining, okay, look at the pharmacy and then think about, well, who do you think, how does this pharmacy can reflect something more? He's actually describing, like, he's spending time describing that everything in the pharmacy is measured and it's precise, and therefore these qualities are reflected or are easily matched to the pharmacist. So it's not only the fact that there is a pharmacy, therefore there's a pharmacist, but also that there is a quality behind or within the pharmacy that is worth looking at in order to say, oh, the pharmacist must be very skillful and wise. Because I think that's where later in the paragraph where it says that by means of the measure or scale of the science of the medicine that you study, the all-wise one of glory, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth, that answers the question, then who is God, right? In a way, the person then listening to this can relate or reflect to the qualities or reflect on the qualities of the creator. I hope I made sense there. Anyone else want to share or add what they're seeing in this paragraph, specifically on how this simple analogy is saying something about God? I see a comment. Okay, the most sufficient. I'm not sure what this word is.
Sheikh.
Oh, the most, okay.
Imam, religious leader.
Okay. The most sufficient sheikh or religious leader of this time is science itself in a way, as long as you interpret in a good way then. I guess if you take what you know in order, or if you take what you're learning in order to answer a more fundamental question or a more essential question, then yes, I guess.
I would say something on Akabe's comment. As I wouldn't say, yeah, the first part I 100% agree with him. So this time, the sheikh of the religious leader of this time is science itself. In a way, I agree so far, as long as you interpret in a good way, then no, as long as you don't misinterpret it, you don't misrepresent it, then you will find the right conclusion. As a human, unconditioned human being, just look at the creation itself. It will speak to you. As long as you don't misinterpret. Thank you.
Thank you. Better way of saying I agree. Agabe just responded. Thank you. Okay, let's move on and let's see if there's any consistency in the strategy. To take another example, a wondrous factory which weaves thousands of sorts of cloth from a simple material doubtless makes known a manufacturer and skillful mechanic. In the same way, to whatever extent it is larger and more perfect than the human factory, this traveling dominical machine, known as the globe of the earth, with its hundreds of thousands of heads, in each of which are hundreds of thousands of factories, shows and makes known by means of the measure or scale of the science of engineering which you study, its manufacturer and owner. Do we see any similarity in the strategy being used in this example?
Yes, we do the same thing, same strategy, giving different example. Of course, the universe is full of examples, different examples. What attracted my attention is, author is not saying they are pointing and proving to the existence of God. No, only related. Pharmacy, pharmacist. So what the Earth is producing now manufacturer and owner. I mean, there is manufacturing going on the earth, but points to the manufacturer. Seems to be very simple. Yes, it is simple. It is not complicated. We shouldn't make it so much going into the details of anything. Whatever the quality we see in the creation itself, in the matter itself, in the objects of this earth itself, these qualities needs to be definitely and should be approvable by any open-minded, unbiased mind, that they definitely point to a conscious actor, conscious element that realizes this happenings here. And also, we will notice that the author is not going to give an example of human-made things. For example, we give the example of computer. Definitely, it refers to an engineering, a conscious being, an engineer. But he keeps consistently, the universe is which kind of quality you have observed, experienced in the creation. This quality necessitates a conscious originator of this quality, because this quality cannot be attributed to matter itself. That is the very fundamental teaching of the Quran, La ilaha illallah, because the quality, you cannot attribute the quality you see in the manufacturing, in the pharmacy. So far, we have seen the examples in the universe, pharmacy of the universe, or manufacturer of the globe of Earth, whatever manufacturing of the globe of Earth. It refers to a conscious actor, nothing else. So definitely there must be a conscious being behind it, operating, behind everything operating. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Agabe.
Assalamu alaikum. I was gonna ask one thing because as it is said, like we should take an example of this, how the author was approaching those young guys, and we should, as Dr. Ali Abi said, that we should prepare ourselves. Then I was thinking those guys who went to ask to author, they were, as Dr. Ali said, they were somehow having some cultural backgrounds. That's why they were confused and they went to ask. But if we see nowadays, those young guys, they don't feel even the, how can I say, like science is so much captured them. So they don't even feel the asking, like the necessity of the God. Then if the author was like this time, he was in this time, how would he think about this?
Don't wait for them to ask you. You present them in this way. Unfortunately, everything is blocked in the way to go to belief in ghaib, in the present culture of the world, everywhere, because we notice that there are two extremes are prevalent in the universe. One of them is all the ways of reasoning is blocked, if not prohibited. But for example, in America, it is prohibited. You cannot mention God, the creator, anything referred to belief matters in general public education system. It is illegal. You will lose your job. You will be fired. So somewhere legally enforced, somewhere culturally enforced, that you cannot talk about the creator or anything belief matters in ghaib. So in ghaib means something beyond the matter itself. So it is not there. So what we have to do now, we have to take up the opportunity without mentioning any religious terminology, which really puts off the people saying, oh, here it is again. Speaking about religion, which has no base anyways. What are they talking about? So the people's interest is really distracted from religion to science itself. So what we have to do, concentrate on the evidence, science that we observe in the subjects of science themselves. So we have to argue there, so present it. You don't have to wait in your home, say somebody will come to me and look, no one is mentioning about God, but I want to learn about him. Tell me some. It is beyond imagination nowadays, finished. Even you say, I am ready to listen to and speak with you. And also I am going to offer you some food. Come to my house. No, it's come almost the civilization turned their back to religion that much in general. That is what is happening on the one side. That there is no need to mention about religion. The other side, another extreme side is, we are Christians, we are Muslims, whatever we are, whatever the religious tradition. So in our religion, we believe in this. Why? Because our religion says us to believe in it. Don't you believe, for example, for the Muslims, don't you believe in the Quran? Quran says there must be a hereafter. There will be a hereafter. Why do we know better than God? There must be a hereafter. God says it. How can you really not believe in or trust in God's word? Who are you as compared to God? This is the attitude based on, again, the same kind of attitude. So we are learning here that no, be comfortable and just speak alongside with the witnessing of the creation itself and refer the result, the agent, to something, not the universe itself, but something else. So necessarily existent one, the very famous concept that the author is transferring to us from Islamic heritage, wajibul wujud. Necessarily, there must be something to exist. Necessarily, logically necessary. Not we believe in. Logically, humanly necessary. That is the method we are learning from this text. Thank you.
Thank you. Farah, go ahead.
My thought is just adding to the conversation and probably also just reiterating the same point that regarding the approach in this text, I think it's also something that we are generally unfamiliar with, whether someone calls themselves a religious person or someone calls themselves, not religious or atheist, or, they're figuring it out, which is that whether they accept something to be true or not to be true, in this case, let's say the existence of a creator, at the end of the day, I think we, in our culture or in our society these days, we hesitate from saying something where the answer or that conviction comes from our own experience. For example, someone who is accepting, in a very typical sense, the existence of a God will not deny that there are not signs of a creator in this world, but they would not use that as the basis or the prime evidence that they witness it. Their prime evidence would be referring to one of the leaders, let's say, or an old text, from the tradition, or just saying, as we were talking, using scripture to claim the truth for itself, because the Quran says so, that's why it is the sign of God, not because I, as a human being, am witnessing this to be true. And similarly, on the other side of the spectrum, someone rejects the existence of a creator, not on the basis of their own observation, but because that's what they have heard from, whether it's the scientific community or certain philosophical thought, to be such a case. So in both cases, I think there is a hesitation or a fear, and I don't think that in our upbringing, I notice it for children these days or otherwise, it is difficult to say who is trusting themselves completely in the decisions that they make because of how many influences they seem to have on them. And then two, you can't say something to be true just because you witness it to be true, but rather you have to say it to be true because you are ascribing to a certain group or an ideology, let's say brands these days, for that to be. So your legitimacy is coming from something other than yourself. And that prevents people from trusting this method as a legitimate method of getting to the truth in their life.
Thank you very much. I can totally relate to this idea of not trusting oneself. It takes such a long time to actually realize that, oh, my observations are actually worthy of something, or my conclusions can count, because of the so much learned idea that, okay, the truth has to come from a place outside of me. Thank you everyone for your participation. I'm really enjoying this discussion. Agabe, go ahead. Is this, did you want to add something? Yes.
Just sure. As I see, like there are two options. Either you have, when you think there's one absolute God, or you should give the all particles the Godhead. That's why since the belief in God starts from the necessity, it's the base. So if someone tells you, I don't feel the necessity because I give this absolute power to the particles, then is it gonna stop there? I feel.
I can't hear you anymore. Was that the end? Was the words I feel the okay.
That was all. Like I feel it's gonna stop over there because someone says I don't feel the necessity of one, then this necessity of absolute power is given to the particles in his eyes. Then how can you go further?
Right. Go ahead, Brother Adi.
I would like to go and make further comment on Farah, what Farah said. It was interesting that she drew our attention to a point that those people who believe in their religious tradition, particularly in God and other elements of belief in ghaib, not related to matter itself, something else, they have in their mind, I don't think, as I agree with Farah, they believe with no evidence at all. I don't believe that. I don't think so. They see the universe wonderful. They see things are coming into existence perfectly. And as a conclusion of their own personal conviction, they believe in a religious tradition. For example, we may see that Christianity looks ridiculous, even more so Judaism as a religion, or the fundamentals of teachings of the religion looks not very acceptable for human beings, but the people follow this religion because they understand that their life, their existence, the existence of the things out there, it really are wonderful. All these things are wonderful here. So they say, oh, no, it cannot happen by itself. And I cannot deny that I need to be created. So conclude and what they do in practical terms, they go and see who is mentioning about God. Religious institutions are mentioning about God. Secular education systems not really mentioning about God. Social media, not much so. So what they do, I have to go and join the religious institutions. They are innocent. What we are talking about the methodology here, not about the people saying that, oh, they say that they believe in God, but they have no evidence at all, no reason at all, just they are imitating. No, I don't think so. I agree with Farah. They believe, they accept that it must be true. That's why they affiliate themselves innocently with any religious tradition they are in. Whatever it is, the Muslim community, you see that, for example, 300 years ago, 500 years ago, certain part of the geography of this globe of Earth called themselves as Christians. All the people of these people, mostly with small exceptions, they follow their religious tradition. And the Muslims follow their religious tradition. Why so? I wondered about it a lot. Why they follow their religious institution? For example, for 1,400 years, Arabian Peninsula and certain part of the Asian, South Asian countries, identify themselves with Islam. And certain part of the South America identify themselves with mostly Catholicism or part of the Christianity, and the northern part, of course, Protestant part of the Christianity. When they follow generation by generation, I wonder, why? Why do they keep following? Because the people are innocent. People are convinced. We have to admit that. They have their own reasoning. And then say, okay, we have to follow if you like, trend in the society, which is pro-belief in God, etc., not matter. So they found the religion talking about it. Buddhists are doing the same thing. Hindus are doing the same thing. Whatever the others, Taoism, whatever they call it, they do the same thing. Christians, Jews, and Muslims are not really different from each other. This is the general demography of the world, actually. So we should be very careful not to accuse people. They are innocent. If someone goes to the church, for example, in any place in the Christian area, populated area, you say, oh, how do you believe in Jesus was God or an appearance on an aspect of God, etc., Son of God, so ridiculous. No, don't blame people. But who to blame them for the mistakes, if there are? Those people who propagate religion, while they are presenting it, they ask people to imitate their conclusion. This is very important to me to pay attention to. Imitate their conclusion. They don't give the reason. That is why methodologically, the author is emphasizing that don't call to your conclusion, but call people to your reason why you concluded in this way. That is what we see from the public speakers, Muslim public speakers, and even so, worse so, if you are patient enough to listen to Christian programs and videos, oh man, it is unbearably imitative. People, the Bible says so. Bible says so. Definitely, it must be so. It may even seem to be irrational. It doesn't make sense. But that is what belief is. So ridiculous, so inhumane. How can you speak in this way? The Muslim preachers somehow try to make sense of it, but not methodologically as consistent, simplistic, basic, and very essential point is mentioned as we are hearing from this really very deep thinking author of the book, but speaking at a very light, simple way. That is amazing to me. Although he's a very deep thinking scholar, but at the same time, the examples, the way he speaks to high school students, innocent young generation, so simplistic, but never mentions God, never mentions his own conclusion. But he established the reason why he concluded in this way and shares the reason, not conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the following paragraph and see what else we can add to this discussion. All right. And for example, a depot, store, or shop in which has been brought together and stored up in regular and orderly fashion. 1,001 varieties of provisions undoubtedly makes known a wondrous owner, proprietor, and overseer of provisions and foodstuffs. In just the same way, to whatever degree it is vaster and more perfect than such a store or factory, this food store of the most merciful one, known as the globe of the earth, this divine ship, this dominical depot and shop holding goods, equipment, and conserved food, which in 1 year travels regularly an orbit of 24,000 years, and carrying groups of beings requiring different foods and passing through the seasons on its journey, and filling the spring with thousands of different provisions, like a huge wagon, brings them to the wretched animate creatures whose sustenance has been exhausted in winter. By means of the measure or scale of the science of economics, which you study, this depot of the earth makes known and makes loved its manager, organizer, and owner. So pretty much it's the same logic that he's using. And he's showing how, okay, everything is making the organizer or the owner or the creator known. The only new thing here is that he's adding the word makes loved. It's manager, organizer, and owner. So it's as if he's saying, okay, the owner is not only making himself known to you, he's also making himself lovable in a way, or making himself loved. Any comments about that? No? Okay. Let's read another paragraph. And for example, let us imagine an army which consists of 400,000 nations, and each nation requires different provisions, uses different weapons, wears different uniforms, undergoes different drill, and is discharged from its duties differently. If this army and camp has a miracle working commander, who on his own provides all those different nations with all their different provisions, weapons, uniforms, and equipment, without forgetting or confusing any of them, then surely the army and camp show the commander and make him loved appreciatively. In just the same way, the spring camp of the face of the earth, in which every spring a newly recruited divine army of the 400,000 species of plants and animals are given their varying uniforms, rations, weapons, training, and demobilizations in utterly perfect and regular fashion by a single commander-in-chief who forgets or confuses not one of them. To whatever extent the spring camp of the face of the earth is vaster and more perfect than that human army, by means of the measure or scale of the military science that you study, it makes known to the attentive and sensible its ruler, sustainer, administrator, and most holy commander, causing wonderment and acclaim, and makes him loved and praised and glorified. So I guess for me, I just highlighted the parts where it remains consistent, how he provides the example of something that you interact with on a daily basis, and then recognizing that there's a conscious will behind it, and then recognizing the qualities of it. Go ahead, Brother Ali, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Someone's asking me, is the screen still shared? Can't see the text. Is this a problem for everybody? Does anybody see the text?
I see it.
Okay. You see it. I'm sorry, I don't know how I can help. I can copy and paste the paragraph for you. Go ahead, Brother Ali, if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, what attracted my attention here, that the author has been talking about what they refer to the existence of an agent, the creator, the pharmacist, and the manufacturer, and the manager, organizer, owner, etc. Now, he started adding to the necessarily existent agent behind the actions something else, making him loved, praised, and glorified. Now the reasoning concluded that there must be somebody. Now the author is really drawing the feelings, human feelings, get involved in this conclusion. So if there is a perfect organizer, administrator, sustainer, ruler, then look, he must be the one who organized my life, and he is the ruler of my existence, and he is sustaining me. So I must have some sort of emotional engagement with him. I have to appreciate him, I have to love him, and I have to be thankful to him, glorify him, praise him. So after the fourth example, together with the fourth example, the author, in a wise way, brought into the subject of emotional engagement in our conclusion. But we will pay attention to this gradual development. How are we going to connect ourselves? Just not an rational conclusion. There must be a creator. All right, I confirm it. Finish. No. Emotional engagement will end up with worshipful relationship, appreciation so much that I will attribute my existence only to him, and I have to express all my praise and gratitude to him alone. We have to notice this. We will need to notice this development. That is also methodologically strategic, important. It is important methodologically. We first introduce the necessary existence of the creator. And then how about our interaction with him? And then go to, then how am I going to communicate with him? I need prophet, etc., or his guidance, etc. These are later stages that we should mention. But we have to follow these stages of introduction of God to us and our relationship with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Aisha Noor.
Assalamu alaikum and jazakallah khair so far for the discussion. Yeah, alongside what Brother Ali was saying, and tying this conclusion to the very beginning in terms of when you were introducing the topic to us and encouraging us to think about how the Quran is a healing for my life. And it's interesting in many ways that, this conclusion is now ending with this sort of worshipful response of love that we can have towards the one who sustains us, the one who provides for us. But that also at the very beginning, I think it gives a different layer of meaning to, thinking of the creator as the sort of pharmacist of this world, right? In that it's not only just the plants and the trees and the world and everything that's carefully measured, just as a pharmacist would measure, the certain medicines or creams or medications in the world, but that my creator is if you will, the pharmacist of my life, right? That the events that I undergo, that the interactions I experience, that everything in my life is being very carefully, very precisely prescribed for me, arranged for me, just as a medication would be precisely, carefully arranged for my specific needs. And that all of what I experience is very personalized, is very just precisely, intentionally arranged for, if you will, the healing of my own human spirit, for the fulfillment of my human spirit, right? And I think once someone comes upon that conviction, feels that conclusion, the only response then is love and acknowledgement and worship of the one who grants that. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, and thank you for reflecting on that question that I mentioned at the very beginning. I think we can stop here today and continue this discussion next week, inshallah. Any last comments or anything before I go ahead and close? Okay, I think thank you all for your participation in the discussion, and I think inshallah we'll have a good one next week too. Right. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.